Now we've got some Monday motivation for you, and I have here with me certified Neuro-Linguistic practitioner, Boluwatife David. Now, he is the founder of the Focus Life community and convener of the Focus Life Summit. And of course, they are also the creators of the Focus Code. They're here to talk about the different types of lives that people live. And that's part of our Monday Motivation series for this month of January, which is really, really important. Good to have you join us here.
Thank you so much for
on the show, and Happy New Year to you.
Same to you.
So different lives that people live. People are hearing that and they're curious about what you have to say in that direction, because I know that you are all about the focused life. So talk to us.
Okay, good morning again. Thank you so much for having me here this morning. So for like 5 years now, I have committed my time to studying a lot of things, most especially one of those things that make people become high performers in whatever field they have chosen, be it in sports, be it in business, or in their career. And when I was doing all of those studies, I found something that is really profound. And I discovered that in this life, everybody is living one of three lives. And I'm going to run through those three lives quickly. The first one is what I call the floating life. Now, this kind of people, they are pretty much floating through life. Now, the interesting thing about them is that they seem to be making progress in life, but the challenge is that they are not making a coordinated progress in life. So think of those people like a leaf that is on the river, that is just flowing with the tides of the water. This kind of people, when you meet them, you know, in this particular season of life, a beginning of the year where people are setting goals, new aspirations, and all of those things. Those people will tell you that, hey, I don't set goals, you know, I just move with the flow of life, you know. And maybe because they've tried setting goals at some point and it didn't work and all of those things, so they just tend to move through life. So this tide of life comes and they go this way. The next moment they're on this journey, the next moment they're on that journey. They're making progresses here and there. Maybe it's not a concerted effort, maybe it's not taking them in any particular direction, but hey, you know, they are making some kind of progress and they're just wandering through life, so to speak. So they are floating through it. Now, the second kind of life that people live is what I call the flustered life. Now, a flustered life is a confused life. But when I talk about confusion here, I am not talking about it in terms of somebody that is clueless. I'm talking about a flustered life in the sense that this person knows that, okay, there is something about my life that is distinct. There is something about me that is bigger than me. But they've not been able to crack that code yet. They've not been able to understand what it is that they are meant to be doing. So the difference between the flustered person and the floating person is that the floating person is just moving with the tides and they have no clue as to what their life is or what they should be doing with their life. The flustered person, however, understands that, hey, there's something about my life, but they are yet to crack it. So when they think about it, they get confused, they get flustered, they get, you know, a bit locked up in a particular world and all of those things. Now, the third kind of life is what I call the focused life. Now, the focused life is a life of that person that has gotten a good understanding of self, somebody that understands that, okay, there is something about my life. They have gotten to that point where they understand what exactly it is about their life. They are self-motivated, they are driven, they understand that life is hard, and they are prepared for whatever shapes, form life is going to give to them. This kind of people, they are so focused and they have a high level of staying power, such that they are not intimidated by the success of people around them. They are not using the results of other people to judge their own results because they understand their own journey and so they are focused on it.
Yeah, talk to us about, I mean, obviously, from the three kinds of lives that you mentioned, I mean, you talked about the flustered and then you talked about the floating. Obviously, those two are less desirable.
Exactly.
What is more desirable is the focused life.
Exactly.
So how do you move from floating or being flustered to
living the focused life?
Being focused?
Okay, so I think maybe before we even talk about how can you become focused, maybe we should talk about what are those factors that are responsible for people not being focused. Now, and there are three major things that I've also found out. The first thing is the fact that some people lack clarity. So they've not been able to answer the question of what their life is about, why that thing is important and how they should go about it. So if you're going to become focused, ultimately, the first place to start from is answering these two questions. What is your life about? Why is that thing so important to you to fulfill in that season of your life? And what are the skills you need, or whatever it is that you need to fulfill that? The second reason why people don't live the focused life is because they are held hostage. Hostage by past experiences, hostage by their friends, hostage by their parents, hostage by their spouses and their siblings. They are held hostage by a lot of things. So a lot of people know exactly what they should be doing, but they are not doing it simply because there is something in their past experience, there's something in the narrative of somebody, there is a story they've heard that tells them that even though this is the desirable life to have, this is where you must be perpetually. And for every time they try to leave this point to this point, they seem to have something holding them back perpetually. So these people are held hostage. For them to be able to move to living the focused life, they need to find a way to break themselves out of that hostage situation. Now, the third thing that is responsible for people not living the focused life is a phenomenon that is common to all of us. And that is the fact that we are all being robbed. We are all victims of theft. And this theft I'm talking about is not the theft of money, it's not the theft of diamond, it's not the theft of gold and all of those things. It is the theft of the most important resources anybody can have in this life, and that is time. You know, and we have a lot of thieves around. Take, for instance, I got robbed a couple of days ago when I got on Netflix and I saw this interesting movie that took about 3 to 4 hours of my time. And when I finished, I was like, Bolu, you have been robbed, you know. So we have a lot of things like that that is robbing us of time. The time we are meant to spend on creating results in our lives, the times that we're meant to spend in solving problems and bringing value to the table. So the question is, we all, if we really want to live the focused life, must be able to say to ourselves, okay, what are the biggest thieves in my life that is stealing my time? Because the things that are taking your time will definitely be different from the things that are taking my time, depending on individual preferences, you know. And then one of the things I also say to people is that as much as, you know, if you buy a car now, probably you install anti-theft on it, you do insurance and all of those things. What are the measures you're taking as an individual to do that for yourself? And I think one of the greatest things to do is actually to use your mobile phone as a tool for accomplishing results. You know, by using it to set your timings, send your reminders and all of those things, plan your day schedule and all of those things. So really and truly, if we look at it, we need to put measures in place. Number one, that will protect us from the thieves that are around us. You know, there are some friends that are just the thieves. When they come, you cannot just say no to them. You need to find a way to put a structure in place that reduces the amount of time you spend with those kind of people so that you're less vulnerable to them.
So let's dial back a little bit, because you know, now we're going deeper into how you can then begin to plan and have a life that is more focused. But if for instance, you have a situation where, again, going back to the first two kinds of lives that you've mentioned, floating and flustered. So there are some who feel like they're stuck in a rut.
Exactly.
So everything you're saying still feels like a lot of work. That, I'm having to begin to disconnect and then reconnect with this new lifestyle, because now you're giving structure, you're giving a proper planning and all of that. How do I begin to make that transition? Because if there's no definite steps that I'm taking to make that transition, it just feels like, okay, I have a lot of, I've received a lecture, but I can now
translate all of those things
that into my personal life on a daily basis. When I wake up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. or wherever it is, what are the specific things that I then need to do in transitioning to a life that is focused?
Okay, so I think one of the things that we all need to really be able to do is to, at some point, you know, decide on the things that are really important to us. And I think the place to really start from is to be able to ask the question, what do I want my life to be synonymous to? I think that's a very good place to start, because if you're already stuck, you know, leave all of those things alone first and ask yourself critical questions. The first question is, what do I want my life to be synonymous to? Such that when they mention my name in my circle of influence, my industry, my friends and all of that, when they mention my name, I want it to resonate this thing. Now, that decision in itself is something that you just sit down and make on a particular day. The moment you now make that kind of a decision, the next thing that you do is to say, okay, for me to be able to do this, what kind of person do I need to become? So take, for instance, I am a trainer. I conduct corporate trainings for corporate organizations and all of that. When I decided that that was what I was going to do, even though I studied law, I knew that the kind of person that will make a good lawyer is different from the kind of person that will make a corporate trainer. So I had to sit down and ask myself, okay, what kind of person makes a good corporate trainer? What are the things that I need to put into myself? Because, you know, the food that a wrestler is going to eat is different from the food a footballer would eat, even though they are all athletes, you know. So I sat down with myself to say, okay, what are those things that I need to do? And that is what everybody that wants to make that transition needs to do.
So you need to begin to...
First of all, decide what kind of person you want to be. The second thing
we have to round off now. I know that you're with us hopefully for a few weeks, and we're going to touch on a number of these issues. Okay. But hopefully, I'm sure that somebody who's listening now, and maybe you feel like you've been floating, definitely, I'm sure you've had one or two things this morning that will help you begin to plan your life and make that transition to a more focused life. Boluwatife David, thank you for joining us.
Let me just drop one point.
No, we do have to go. We do have to go.
Okay.
I have to head to the kitchen now where Tokpa is on standby.